Hi everybody, welcome back to Little Spoon Farm. Today we are going to make the most delicious sourdough berry sweet rolls that have a thick lemon glaze on top. So if you're interested in making these, let's get started. The first thing that you are going to want to do is make sure to feed your starter. You're going to do this about 12 hours before you want to mix your dough. So to a jar, you want to add 15 grams of sourdough starter, 50 grams of water, and 50 grams of flour. Go ahead, stir that up, and put a cover on it until you are ready to mix the dough. Once you are ready to mix that dough, you are going to use a cheese grater to grate the cold butter into a bowl, which is going to create these thin little strips of butter. And by doing this, you're going to be able to incorporate that butter into the dough much better later. So add your flour and then use a fork to kind of gently just toss it all around, and it's going to coat all of the butter strands and make it mix together much easier later. After you have that incorporated together, go ahead and put your other dry ingredients. So that would be your sugar. I'm using brown sugar, but you can use regular sugar. You can even use honey if you want, and some salt. Again, go ahead and just toss all those dry ingredients around in the bowl so that way they are evenly dispersed. And once you get that done, we will go ahead and add the wet ingredients, which is some milk. I'm using a plant-based milk that's unsweetened, but you can use dairy milk, and then your active sourdough starter. So when I mix my dough, I usually start out with an offset spatula or a Danish whisk, and I use it and I just try to get it mixed together as much as I possibly can, because this is going to be a little bit of a sticky dough at first, and this kind of just keeps my hands cleaner. So I will use this spatula until I just can't get anything else incorporated, and then I will switch over to my hands. So you can see that I'm kind of squeezing and pressing this dough. I'm not kneading the dough, I'm just trying to get all that flour pressed into it so that it can start absorbing the liquids that is in the dough. And don't worry if it looks too dry, because we're going to let this sit for an hour to kind of let it absorb things a little bit better. So cover that up, let it sit for an hour, and then we're going to knead the dough, but not a lot, just for about a minute. And the only reason that we're doing this is because we want to just totally make sure that all the flour, it has gotten into that dough, and that the butter and everything is nice and evenly incorporated into the dough ball. So like I said, this isn't a long process. You don't need to do this for very long, maybe just about a minute. And then once that is nice and you'll see it start to get a little bit smooth, just put it back into that same bowl, cover it, and let it sit at room temperature until it doubles in size. That takes my dough about 8 to 10 hours in a 68-degree kitchen. This is what it's going to look like. Now you can put this dough in the fridge and wait to proceed with the next steps, a day or two later, or you can go ahead and make your sweet rolls right away. So before you roll your dough out, you want to make this sugar mixture that we're going to spread over it. And you'll take some sugar and some cinnamon, and we're also going to add a little bit of flour, which is going to help thicken the juices that are released from the berries while they bake. We're also going to add the zest of a lemon. So we're using the juice of this lemon in the glaze later, so you might as well go ahead and zest it, because lemon zest and lemon juice with berries is just a really good combination. It really brings out the flavor and brightens it up a lot. So go ahead and take a fork and just mix that together and set it aside. So now it's time to shape the dough. Now my dough looks really, really stiff because I just pulled it out of the fridge. If you did this from right after it rose, it's not going to be this stiff. So lightly flour your work surface. And then I like to, when it's stiff like this, I will take my hand and start pressing it out, and we're trying to get a rectangular shape. That's about 12 inches by 18 inches approximately. That's going to give you 12 1.5 inch sweet rolls. So I'll go ahead and switch over to a rolling pin, and as I'm rolling it, I kind of check to make sure that the dough is not sticking to the countertop by just kind of lifting it up every now and then. And if it does start sticking, you see how I'm checking it right there? If it feels like it's sticking, I'll add a little bit of flour, but if it's not, then I don't. I also, as I'm rolling this, I will kind of stop and use my hands to help shape that rectangular shape even more. And that just makes it really easy to roll it into that log shape. So once I have my rectangle, I'm just taking that sugar mixture and I'm spreading it evenly all over the dough, and I'm leaving about 1 inch border like around the edges of the dough, because we're going to want to pinch that after we roll the dough into a log and kind of seal that up. But this is frozen mixed berries. I'm putting them on frozen, and I'll tell you why in a minute, but you can use fresh if you want, but you do not want to mix the sugar and the berries together. You want to put them on separately, because if you mix those berries and sugar together and then put it on, you're going to have a big, wet, sloppy mess. You will not be able to roll these up. So if you have any big, huge berries, cut those with a knife so they're not so chunky and big. And then I'm just using this bench scraper to help me get started. I use that a lot on cinnamon rolls. And you're just gonna start on this long end and roll them up, as tightly as you can. And you can see as I'm rolling, I'm kind of just spreading out those berries and, just trying to make sure they're nice and even, because they are big, they will kind of move around, but just, you'll see I'm kind of pressing them in and until I get it all the way over. And now I'm pressing the dough and trying to seal it underneath, and then roll it onto that seam before I start cutting. So I'm going to cut this into 12 equal pieces, and I have this little tool that I used, and when I cut these out it was 11, so I decided, oh my gosh, I got to go back and make 12. And when I did, I went back and made these cuts, and as you can see now, I don't know which cuts are which, so that was a mistake on my part. No big deal. I just went back and eyeballed it and cut these into 12 pieces as evenly as I could eyeball it, and put them into a glass baking dish. Now this is a 9 by 13 baking dish. And I did put a piece of parchment paper on the bottom just because, I don't know, it makes it easier to clean. You don't have to do that. I would grease this pan if you're not going to put parchment down. But you can see that I am, just putting these in here. And yeah, just make sure you have 12 cinnamon rolls. And then I think on this one, there was some like more shallow little rolls in there, and I just kind of put these on top of those to kind of even them out with the others, because sometimes it is what it is. You make some mistakes cutting it, no big deal. They'll bake together. Now all those little berries that you see left on the countertop, I'm gonna take those and just kind of smush them in between the rolls and fill any little blank spots so that those don't go to waste. And that's about it. After you get all this done, you want to cover this with a towel, and you want to let it sit at room temperature for about 2 hours They're not going to expand a whole lot because, you know, the berries and everything are cold, which is, it's not going to make it rise very much, but they're going to release a bunch of juices. And that's when you know it's kind of ready. You'll see here when I tip it, you see the juices are kind of running out. That's when you want to go ahead and bake. So bake them for 30 minutes at 400 degrees and they will be real bubbly like this. While you take that out, go ahead and make your glaze. I've taken a tablespoon of butter and just kind of melted it, and I turned the heat off. And then I add the powdered sugar, a little bit of milk, and then to thin it down to where I need it, I'm using the juice of that lemon. So start out with a little bit of juice and then, you know, give it a good stir. And if it's too thick, just add a little bit more lemon juice. And if it's too thin, you can always go back and add some more powdered sugar if you need to. But just do those a little bit at a time until you get the consistency you want. And when you have it, just go ahead and pour it right over these rolls. And oh my gosh, this glaze along with this berry filling is amazing. I know that you guys are going to absolutely love these sourdough berry sweet rolls. Your family's gonna love them, and you know, this is gonna be one of your new favorite sourdough recipes. So until next time, bye.